This conference will now be recorded.
Oh, you got a headset on now.
He is really flying right now.
I do have the headset on. That's for your. As I say, that's for your benefit because you'll hear less noise in the background of my house.
Chad, are you alone?
Yes.
Thank you. What's the swearing sheet?
All right. It is 6 o'clock. Is everybody ready to begin the meeting?
No.
Wait one.
Wait one.
Okay.
You may have to print another one. I had it. I don't know what happened to it.
You want to ad lib it?
No. I'm sorry, I had it,
You'll find it as soon as the meeting's over.
I know. but I haven't got it. Sorry.
That's the worst thing that happens today?
Yeah.
It's probably in on Kelly's desk somewhere.
It's sitting on the printer still.
I didn't see it in my little file here, so it's not there.
No, I'm sorry. You got it?
It was late on the top.
You can tell me. Sorry.
I'll let you know.
You can go now, Frank.
Oh, okay.
Frank, I don't know if you could hear us, but we are good to go to start.
You're showing
All
me
right.
muted. Ah, there you go.
All right. Thank you. We'll go ahead and start the meeting tonight. And I've already started recording of the meeting. I would like to call the meeting to order. And if we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I've never done it as a round before.
Well, typically, when we were all remote, we needed one person to do it because we weren't there. Now, Frank's is on the opposite end of the team this time.
That's true. That's true. All right. And then if we could have a roll call, please.
Mr. Ackerman?
Here.
Mr. Graham?
Here.
Mr. LaFever?
Here.
Mr. McKinnon?
Here.
Mrs. O'Rourke?
Here.
Mr. Pearson?
All right. We do have a quorum tonight. And just to kind of go through the guidelines, just wanted to point out that the governor has issued a disaster declaration that goes through, I believe, at least until April 2nd of 2023. And I've determined that we are allowed to meet remotely as part of that disaster declaration. And all members of the public body participating shall be verified and make sure that they can hear one another. So you can hear me, I can hear you, so that satisfies that requirement. And we also have to make sure that the members of the public are able to attend as well, whether they're in person or attending virtually, that they also may hear what is being discussed and being voted upon. At least one member of the board must be present, and we have at least one member there, so we satisfy that requirement. All votes must be conducted by roll call so we can hear who is saying yay or nay. We have to give 48 hours notice that we will be meeting virtually, which we have done. The notice was posted on March 10th. I believe it was in the morning. And each member that is attending virtually or by audio is considered to be part of the quorum. And we also need to make sure we have a verbatim record, and we do. We're recording this, so we should be good to go. We've established the quorum, so if we can move on to any conflict of interest. All right, I'm not hearing any. If you do find you have a conflict with an item that we're discussing, please let me know. Do we have any changes to the agenda tonight?
Yes, Public Works will remove item number 3A1, the 2023 street project.
And police will remove number 2, discussion of the school resource officer.
All right. Any other changes to the agenda? All right, hearing none, if we could have a motion to approve the agenda as changed.
Jeremy Graham will make that motion.
Julia second.
All right, thank you. If we could have a roll call, please.
Mr. Ackerman,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. LaFever,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Pearson,
All right, that's approved. We'll move on then to the consent agenda. If we have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Jeremy Graham will make that motion.
The favor
We
will
have a
second that.
All right, thank you. And Madam Clerk, if we are ready, you may have a roll call, please.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. LaFever,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Pearson, Mr. Ackerman.
Yes.
All right, that's approved. And as part of that, you've adopted or you've already read through the draft minutes of the committee meetings. I see we have public comment. No one signed up for public comment, so we will move on to the committee meetings. We'll start with Public Works.
Sally, do you have the next resolution number, please?
2023-12R.
Okay, we have a motion from committee that we would approve resolution 2023-12R, which is the purchase of a BOMAG roller from Mr. Mitchell in the amount of $27,000. And that will be coming from account number 51-44-951. And all that information is highlighted in the summary draft resolution.
All right, thank you. Since it is coming from committee, we do not need a second. Any discussion on the pending motion?
I just have a question because I know nothing about these pieces of equipment. How do we know we're getting a good price for the condition and for the equipment at hand?
We have used it over the years on a loan basis, and a year ago, we went ahead and established what we thought was going to be a recurring $3,000 a year rental, lease, call it what you will. And so Public Works is very familiar with the quality of the equipment. It's been in good service. In fact, we probably used it more than Mr. Mitchell has. And Public Works has looked at what the available equipment was on the used market or whatever and confirmed it's a fair value. We expected it was going to be a longer term rental because Mr. Mitchell expected to continue to have the needs for it. But at this particular point, if he does need one in the future, this one is undersized for what their needs would be. And that's why he's looking to go ahead and sell it at this point, where previously he wanted to stick around with the rental.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, if we could have a roll call, please.
Mr. LaFever,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Pearson, Mr. Ackerman,
Yes.
Mr. Graham.
Yes.
All right, that's
That is it.
approved. All right, thank you, Mike. We'll move on to community development. Drew is not here. I don't know if somebody from the committee wants to bring forward.
So the only thing we have is the joining of the Region 1 Planning Land Bank IGA.
Okay.
I need a resolution for that, do I? We're just joining,
it can be either brought before the board tonight for approval of that, or we can lay it over to the next board meeting and have a resolution prepared in advance. I'm fine either way.
it's coming from committee.
Oh, it is? Okay. All right, so we have the motion coming from committee to join the Region 1 Planning Land Bank through its IGA. Any discussion regarding this motion to be part of the land bank?
I would say that we could probably vote on it conceptually if we agree to it. I guess we could even adopt a resolution next month. At least we know it's worth the effort of putting the time to create it.
Sure. And I can help with that resolution in the executive summary so that we would have it ready for community development to review that resolution and make sure it's the way you want it. And then we could present it back to the board at the next board meeting if you feel that that would be the better process.
I think it would stay consistent with what we've been trying to do.
I agree. So since we have a pending motion from committee to join the land bank, I would entertain a motion to lay this over to the next meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion on laying this over to the next board meeting? If there's no discussion to lay it over, if we could have a roll call to lay it over to the next board meeting, please.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Pearson, Mr. Ackerman,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. LaFever,
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Mike or Jason, could you send me a quick email when you get a chance in the next week just to remind me to prepare that executive summary?
Yes,
Thank you.
I will.
All right. Appreciate it. We will go on to police committee.
Okay, first item on the agenda, swearing in of Police Officer McNeely. Come on up.
All right. If we could have Officer McNeely approach, please.
No, look, you can get behind me.
Yep.
Stand by the tally.
Okay, just watch the cords as well.
It's skinny, right?
You can come
Around here.
That's what she said the last time.
It was only a little bit. I'm skinny.
Go read next one.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
Robert McNeely Jr.,
Having been duly appointed,
having been duly appointed,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will uphold
that I will uphold
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the United States of America
of the United States of America
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of Illinois,
of the State of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of police officer
the duties of police officer
in and for
in and for
the Village of Winnebago
the Village of Winnebago
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Blood never hurt anybody. Yeah, it's usually not, it's not the teeth marks we're usually worried about, it's usually the blood draw.
I don't have to do that.
Perfect.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you, Robert, for joining the police department. We appreciate it.
Okay.
Take this to chief and ask him to sign it. Thank you.
I don't know if I will now.
Still
losing on the way.
Already lost one. Okay.
All right, the other item is police recruitment. Nick, were you gonna cover that or?
Just like we got interviews this week.
Okay, yeah, we do have a couple interviews, tomorrow night, in fact. A couple of different people that are come to, be, which is really exciting. And this, if we can hire one of them, we will be at our, I think, our budgeted amount for maximum police officers, and we'll be ready to, we can start with that SRO program in the fall, and the next, start of the next school year. So that'll be a good place to be, so. We will keep you posted and see how the interviews go tomorrow night. Other than that, that's it for police.
All right. Thank you, Julie. We'll move on to finance committee.
Good afternoon, everybody. The first item is the appropriation ordinance. We just had our public hearing. There was no comments from the public. So I'd like to entertain a motion. This is coming, we don't need a motion. It's coming from committee to approve the appropriation ordinance for the fiscal year 2023.
All right, so we have a pending motion from committee. We do not need a second. Any discussion, or can we have an ordinance number, please?
That's why I was looking to see if we'd had one before. This is the first one, 2023-01.
Thank you.
At the same time,
Yep.
when you follow this, I need another motion to prepare for the tax levy ordinance, which will be 02.
Okay.
So it can be drafted when all information is found. We put them together and that's easily found. Okay?
Okay. Yep. Thank you. All right, so we have the pending motion to adopt the appropriations ordinance as presented. Any discussion? All right. As Jeremy mentioned, we did have our public hearing earlier this evening in compliance with the statute. And so at this point, we'd like to have a roll call.
Sure. Mr. Pearson? Mr. Ackerman?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. LaFever?
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke?
Yes.
All right, that's approved. And then as our clerk mentioned, we need to have a motion to prepare for the tax levy ordinance, which would be 2023-02.
Jeremy Graham will make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, if we could have a roll call, please.
Mr. Ackerman?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. LaFever?
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
All right, that's approved.
The second item is just a small change to the purchasing policy. We had not an incident, but we had an issue where the person approved, the person that was allowed to make the purchases was not here, and the small change, Sally, if you have it in front of you, wouldn't mind reading just the small verbiage, but basically allowing an appointed person to make the paid purchases if the normal one is gone. Yes.
We added the words to municipal authority or appointed designee.
And that is also covered from committee.
All right. So we have a motion pending to adopt the policy as amended. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Any discussion?
No objection to what was mentioned, but I guess just maybe somewhere in the future as we are trying to figure out some of these things that we're approving, whether or not a resolution is required, would it be appropriate to try to have the guidelines of when we would expect a resolution included in that policy?
Right. I agree, Mike, that something like this, typically you'd have a resolution. It's a one-time thing, just with a little bit of background as to why it's being done. I know it's a minor change, but if we are trying to hold.
I'm not talking about a resolution for this. I'm talking about, would it be appropriate within the purchasing policy or a separate, a resolution to clearly identify so everybody's well aware at what point are we expecting a resolution for a purchase? For example, we had the resolution for the Bomac roller. Do we, don't we? What are the parameters? So that way there we try to define that clearly so in the future there's no, question whether or not we're expecting one.
So your recommendation is to add more into the purchase?
It doesn't have to be done today, but I guess when the opportunity, would this be the appropriate place to include that guidelines?
Right.
What do we do now for anything over the limits in the policy, which would be 10,000 for village president, or, I mean, what are we doing now for resolutions? Probably anything over these limits, right?
That's typically what we would do.
And maybe it somewhat comes into the RFP for the bigger dollar amounts, but again, it's still a little bit not clear when exactly we're expecting. Again, Doesn't really affect what we're talking about right now, but it just seemed like a good point to interject, and we may want to have a document, and whether it's an adaptation of this or a separate document, just so we clearly know when we're expecting a resolution.
I think this would be an appropriate item for the admin team plus the supervisors when we get together to discuss it. And then we can maybe set out what we think would be a good policy for when we have a resolution, when we don't need one. You know, in the past, it's always been that pretty much every single spending item, $50 and higher, came before the board for the board to approve. And it gets a little monotonous that way. We need to have the discretion for our different department heads to make the decisions when they need to without having to come to the board. So I think admin team would be a good place to discuss that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So we have the purchasing policy motion still pending. Is that correct?
That is
Yes.
correct.
Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, if we could have a roll call, please.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. LaFever?
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson? Mr. Ackerman?
Yes.
All right,
And
that's
that is it.
approved.
That is it from finance.
Thank you, Jeremy. We do have under my items the standard meeting
And-
dates.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
There isn't anything under admin team and clerk. The only thing I do want to bring up, coming soon, you will get the information to do your statement of economic interest. And when you do, make sure you follow through with that. It's just a reminder. Okay?
The IML had some guidelines. I don't know if Kelly had sent those out before or even more recently, but they do have guidelines. The latest version was sort of difficult to follow. And I know the legislators are trying to make changes to that, or at least IML's trying to have changes made to it, but they haven't been made yet. So if you have any questions of how to fill it out, please contact Kelly. Also use the IML as a reference or as a resource.
So those of us that are going to be on the ballot, we still have to do another one then?
Yes.
Correct. You have to do both. You have to do the one when you're going to be running and the one because you're currently serving.
All right.
So what you're doing is one form and you're listing your separate roles. I have to do that for liquor commissioner, zoning, and village president, and you would do that as board member and elected official running for election.
Okay.
All right. We have under new business an ordinance applying henceforth the village's unified development ordinance. This has come up in zoning where we have had an issue between the original zoning ordinance that was adopted back in 1957 and has at different times been amended. And then we've adopted the UDO more recently within the last 4 or 5 years. But the UDO only applies currently to new construction, whereas the other zoning ordinance applies to existing buildings. And we have found that there are discrepancies between the two such that if you read one or the other one, you may get confused as to what rules apply. So for the short term, what we have requested is that the board adopt this ordinance that basically says the UDO rules will apply to new construction and to existing buildings. However, what will not change is the current designation of a current building. So if you're currently, general business district under the 1957 ordinance, you're not going to change under the UDO. You'll still retain what you had. It's just moving forward, if you apply to change your zoning or if you apply to reconstruct your existing building, the UDO will now apply. And then after the adoption of this ordinance, zoning will work on updating the UDO and making sure that the language in there is better suited for what we need. So this is a recommendation coming from zoning, but however, since zoning is not a standing committee of the board members, we do need to have a motion and we need a second in order to move forward with this ordinance. Someone would like to make a motion to get it up for discussion?
Jeremy Graham will make the motion.
LaFever will second that.
All right, thank you. So now we can discuss this further. I've already presented a little bit of it. I don't know if anybody has any questions or has any concerns about this pending ordinance.
Do you want a number?
Yes, please.
2023-03.
Thank you.
I would assume if a piece of property was going to be renovated or something, there's going to be situations that are going to prevent them from moving forward. If they've been built here quite a ways, I would assume there's still an opportunity in those situations that the property owner can, file with the zoning committee for a variance.
Correct. The UDO is a little more comprehensive, and we feel that it would be better to have the UDO cover all aspects, not just new construction. Whereas the old zoning ordinance of 1957, we would have to make changes to get it to state what we think it should state. So it would not affect, it would not be a detriment to somebody that currently has an existing building that wants to ask for a variance, ask for a zoning change, or anything else. It would not be a detriment to them. They would follow the UDO language, which again is, I think, better suited for really what we're trying to do.
How would that work in the village proper in the old part of town? Because if you look at some of those qualifications, like at our new construction, for example, the Dollar General, the landscaping and all that, how would that work for somebody who wants to put up a new commercial building in the old village proper that doesn't have the space to do all that stuff?
That's where they would ask for a variance.
That's okay. That's where the variance would come through.
Yep.
Yeah, because like I said, there's, when you come to parking availability and curbs and gutters and sidewalks and, it's gonna be.
This part of the village, original village proper, you're not gonna be able to get everything out of the new construction and new area, commercial area development as you are in the old section, so.
Yeah, that's why I was, knowing that there's gonna be some obstacles, at least if, you look at it, and it's twice as long as there's a variance opportunity. Now, you may look at it and come to the conclusion, you know what, it just is not going to work, or yes, we can make this work with a minor variance here or there.
Right.
But yes, I recognize for consistency, trying to go back to something from the 50s and several modifications in between, at least bringing it up to the thought out and debated ordinance for the UDO would make sense, so.
Any other discussion or thoughts? Okay, hearing none, if we could have a roll call, please.
Mr. LaFever?
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson? Mr. Ackerman?
Yes.
Mr. Graham?
Yes.
All right, that's approved. I do have one other item of new business. I would like to appoint John Mumm to the zoning board. We have a vacancy that's been open for quite some time. We actually had two vacancies. We had one recently filled by Riley Pitney, and I'd like to fill this last open position by John Mumm. Mike Booker spoke with John, and I've known John for quite a long time. And John said that he would be happy to be in this position. So I just wanted to bring forth to the board and see if anyone has any objection to John being on the zoning board. All right. Since I'm not hearing any objection, we will go ahead and have him appointed, and he'll be able to start serving at the next zoning board meeting. We do have, do we have any other new business for tonight? All right, if there's no new business, if we have a motion to adjourn,
I'll make that motion.
do we have a
I'll
second?
second.
All right, any discussion? We're getting done before 30 minutes of the meeting. All right.
Quiet.
Well-
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Pearson, Mr. Ackerman,
Yes.
Mr. Graham,
Yes.
Mr. LaFever.
Yes.
All right.
6:29.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for being at the meeting, and have a good evening.
There will be some payback someday.
Yeah.